Salango Law Light the Night returning to the ballpark at the Go-Mart Ballpark November 21st. It'll run through the first of the year. Check out your tickets. Get your tickets in advance. Please get them in advance. Visit dblightthenight.com. Delegate Hollis Lewis is here. How you doing, my friend?
I am doing well. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you for being here. So a couple of things I wanted to talk to you about. First of all, Democrats, several of them, yourself included in some of these, I think, have been having these kitchen table events throughout West Virginia, throughout the state, Charleston, Huntington, Gilbert, Flatwood, just to name a few. Are there any more of those scheduled, or is the tour over now?
Well, the tour officially wrapped up, but we're going to have a couple additional stops here in the next couple months, so we're in the planning phases for those.
Okay, all right. So what was your takeaway from all these?
It was excellent. It was just our opportunity to get out in front of West Virginians, to hear what they have to say, and also, give them our agenda and see points of where we can collaborate, points of where we are deficient, in which we can add to what we plan to do in the next session.
And I've talked to, I'll give you an example. I talked to Amanda Barron, who was the moderator, the one in Charleston and Huntington, and she said you wouldn't think that some of the issues were the same, some of the issues were different in the different communities. And I know when you went to these other areas, they certainly were, like when you went to Gilbert and places like that. So, but there were a lot of similarities as well. Yeah,
it's a lot of similarities. People are, suffering from the same thing. When we talk about education, we talk about childcare, when you talk about things that's going on in the SNAP. So, as much as we are different in these different communities, we are dealing with similar issues.
You mentioned SNAP, and I'll just jump down to that right now with the partial government shutdown going on. SNAP benefits ended for many Americans, 16% of the population in West Virginia on Saturday. And there's been this back and forth. Okay, and the state has stepped up, the guards involved, and so on and so forth. But the bottom line is there's still some hungry people out there, and I think, and I said this on Midday yesterday, Hollis. It goes to show you West Virginians and how we are, because we step up. We step up without having to be told. It's like, okay, what do we got to do to help people? And we're doing. We're going to talk to a business owner in the next segment who's doing that exact same thing. But it's a very unfortunate situation. Because of a dysfunction, this is me talking, not you, because of a dysfunctional system in D.C.
Well, I would ditto that. Anytime and again, what's going on as far as the government shutdown, they're trying to work it out. You have different sides of, advocating for different things. But bottom line is that there should be no situation, I don't care if it's a government shutdown, if the Dems calls it, the Republican calls it, where people have to go hungry. Because I'm a person with lived experience. I grew up on SNAP benefits. We used to call them food stamps back in the day. And by the 25th, 26th of the month, you're running out of food, and you're stretching that last week in order to, have your SNAP benefits hit so you can, replenish your pantries. In addition with that, when you talk about November being Thanksgiving, the holidays coming up, people are going to be stretched thin. And when you talk about a state like West Virginia in particular, you mentioned 16% of the population, and also 25% of our population is living in what was considered a food desert. So to get that access to food is an additional cost, when some people have to travel up to 45 minutes to go to a grocery store. And so when you mix all these things in addition to the rising costs of everything, it just creates a bad situation. And we have to do what's necessary in order to feed our people. West Virginia House Dems, we're calling on the governor to have a special session to see how we can help fund those people who don't have SNAP benefits this month.
Do you think there's a lot of support for the governor to bring the legislature back in?
Well, I would hope it would be. I can't speak for everybody, but I know on our side, we're definitely advocating for that, because we have to do this. This is, in no circumstances, when we talk about food, shelter, clothing, healthcare, education, these are non-negotiables. This is things that, we're living in the richest country in the world, that we should be able to provide with no problem, regardless of whatever else is going on.
Talking to Delegate Hollis Lewis, Democrat out of the 57th. The Dave Allen Show on 580 Live is brought to you in part by Bridge Valley Community and Technical College. Insurance agents are in demand in the state and across the country. Bridge Valley can help you take that first step. Their insurance pre-sales licensure course will prepare you to sit for the state-required property and casualty insurance licensure exam to start your career in this ever-growing field. Check out bridgevalley.edu for details. Bridge Valley, your career starts here. All right, so Tuesday, we're 48 hours away, actually less than that, when the polls closed in a lot of these states, and Virginia, New York, and so on and so forth. And there were some surprises, but in some cases not surprises. It was a good night for the Democrats.
Yeah,
Talk about
sure.
that.
I mean, it was definitely a good night, something that I think we needed. And I think it's indicative of what people are, sort of the sentiments that are changing. Like, we have to have policies. We have to have leaders that are going to truly put the American people first, not whatever agendas, not this corporation, not billionaires. It has to be a people first agenda. And I think that's what we saw the people go out and vote for.
I think the word that was bandied around a lot, we talked about it, the guys on Talk Line did, was a simple word, Delegate, and it was affordability.
Yeah.
And that's what we saw. And look, some of the states, somebody pointed out, and they're correct in doing this, pointing out, well, some of these were blue areas. On the whole, you can say some of these states were, but when you break it down into the individual areas, some of the reddest areas, some of the reddest counties, if you will, on Tuesday went blue.
Yeah, and the fact of the matter is, just because you're in a blue state or a blue area, that doesn't mean that a Democrat is automatically going to win, right? We've seen New York City had record turnout. So people are not only voting, but they're coming to the polls with being intentional about how they vote. And just when we talk about affordability, just going back to SNAP for a second, what we got to realize is that 60% of the people, and this is a nationwide stat, that are on SNAP are working. And to maybe a Republican's point, they may say, you may hear that and see, well, why do they need SNAP? But the question that you have to ask is that, why do they need SNAP? In that the companies that they are working for, they don't pay them enough to be able to afford food. Think about that. Think about a person working 40 hours a week, doesn't have enough money at the end of the month to not only pay for rent and living expenses, but to pay for food, and they have to get government assistance to supplement that. So when you talk about that affordability, I believe we have a cultural problem, and we have to re-examine like kind of what we're doing and where we're at, because people shouldn't have to work 3 and 4 and 5 jobs in order just to live.
Delegate Hollis Lewis, always a pleasure to have you on the show, my friend.
Thank you, my man.
All right.
I appreciate you.
All right. It is 9:50. We're going to take a break. And